Good morning. Hand today's going to be pocket tens. And this hand under the gun raises at 2.8 and folds around to me. Villain's playing 32-18 with a 5% 3-bet stat. He looks like he is loose. His raise first in stat 28%. VPIP from early position 27%. This guy is loose. He appears to be aggressive with his bets. How does he play post flop? Tends to c-bet. About the range that you need. In position, he probably c-bets way too much. And then, gives up if he doesn't have something. Out of position, I think it looks like he plays a little bit better. So, what else do we have on his notes? I've already started today's hand with the notes, but I didn't take anything to judge if the size is big, if this is standard or anything. So let's start with that. Folds around to me. So this guy's range, I'm going to say this is 28.2%. It's probably pretty darn close. Again, we excluded the offsuit aces, offsuit ace X hands. If we add those, we're going to have to take a lot of these suited hands out. We could, I think suited hands that could come out would be something like those, and then get those replaced with your offsuit aces. Maybe you get rid of those suited kings and add some of these offsuit connectors too. I think we're just going to go with this hand and see what he has, and update. Take notes on him so we can improve our range estimation against him. We are deep, so I'm the effective stack at 172 big blinds. This is a hand that we could 3-bet. So if we look at big blind versus early position, we have our standard 3-bets, which will be fairly tight, and then you have your 3-bet versus call. Now, Villain's going to be looser in his opening ranges here than typical. So let's change this. It was small blind versus EP. There it is, small blind versus EP. That's what we're at. Still tighter. We actually don't have as many 3-bet calls. We play tighter from the small blind because we have the big blind to worry about. But this is versus early position. And what I was going to say is that we could probably move this to either mid position range or cutoff range in terms of our 3-bet and 3-bet call. Definitely versus the cutoff, we're getting into the possibility that people could be stealing. I don't think he's stealing, and that's why we don't have a whole lot of calls here, or 3-bet or call. It's just 3-bet or fold. So if we wanted to, we could have changed like what our range is, what kind of hands we're calling with versus that mid position player. I think this is probably more of a mid position range than an early position range. So do we do this, which is a tighter and stronger range, or do we do something like this? I think I'm going to do this. I think he's probably loose enough to where we're going to be 3-betting a little bit strong, a little bit more against him, because it's better. I think it's probably better to be aggressive than to call, and that means we're going to be calling with a slightly weaker range here. So we're going to go with that range. What does the big blind do? He folds, so we see a flop of 2-5-4. So not bad. We've got our overpair. We've got a decent overpair. We figure to be ahead of all of his range except jacks, queens, kings, and aces. So that is 24 combinations that we're behind. But he started the hand with 352 combos, so we're ahead of a major part of his range now. We do expect him to bet. He has been consistently betting, c-betting, so I don't think this is a good spot to bet here, to lead. And I don't like leading at all, so I think we're going to be checking. I know we're going to be checking. Question is, do we have any hands that would justify a 3-bet? not a 3-bet, a check raise. Based on our own range, no. And I think it would be hard pressed because I have been playing tight. We've got 89 at this table, and this is what I'm playing, 9% VPIP, 8% pre-flop raise. So to him, I think if we're playing this tight, I don't have like a 2, I don't have 4, I don't have 5. Maybe I have ace 3. I mean, outside chance that I have ace 3. So I don't think I really have any big hands that could really represent a check raise. So if I check raised it, they could say, well, he probably doesn't have a draw, which means I only have an overpair. If an ace or a king comes, they know they're good. Probably even a queen if the queen comes, because they're going to be putting me on 3-betting probably hands at least queens plus ace king. So if they have jacks, they're gonna get me all the way. So I think this is more of a check call type hand, where we're going to be calling with our overpair, we're going to be calling with our flush draw, probably going to be calling with gut shot, with ace jack, ace 10, and probably with our 2-card backdoor flush draw. But I think our gut shot's going to be part of that 2-card backdoor flush draw here. So we're going to get those spades. We're going to be calling with your hearts. It's color code this to see the breakdown. And then we've got our overpair set. I think that's going to be a pretty decent balance at check call. So we did check, and then villain bet, and he bet 2/3. A little more than 2/3, I think. About 75%. Let's add that with, we don't know what he had, bet, I think 75%. I'm just going to leave that open. What's he going to bet with? He's been betting 100% of his range, so I don't think he's... I think he's going to be betting 100% of his range here. He has to figure that this board doesn't really hit me a whole lot, so I think he's betting 100% of his range, which means then we call with our range here. So we're calling 70% of the time, and we're still going to be ahead. Our range is still ahead. Turns the 9 of spades. That can improve us now. So if we want, we have the option of leading here. What could we lead? 9s, 10s, top pair, 8s. We could lead all of those cards that we're ahead with our pocket pairs. We could lead our flush draw. Problem with leading, I think, here is, yeah, these are fine. We can lead with all of those value hands, but when we lead with the flush draw and get raised, it's going to be hard for us to call again, and we might have to fold that equity. So I kind of feel like in order to be balanced, we're going to be looking at just checking again and probably check calling. And I think we're going to be a lot more aware of our overcards, so we're not going to be calling with all of our overcards. We're just going to be calling with those that have the flush, which in theory should be all of our overcards that we currently have at this spot in our range. So that's like 100%. It looks like we've improved. We're probably check calling. So we check. Villain checks behind. So that's telling, because again, based on a c-bet stats, he tends to bet 100%, and then he tapers off to 60%. So at this point, we're going to exclude all of the no-made hands. We're going to hold on, we're not excluding those. He would have continued betting his straights, his sets, his 2-pair, overpair, top pair. I believe he's probably betting those pocket pair less than the top card. We could give a percentage, but I think like this weaker stuff, he's probably checking behind. Weak pair, middle pair, and that's tough actually. We got our no-made hand. I think we're turning our flop draws that open enders out. Maybe he has gut shot, maybe he has overcards. And the question is, what does he do with those? We're gonna change that. We're gonna set that at 50% because I'm unsure. I'm unsure what he would do with those. And same thing, I think, with these middle pair. I'm really unsure. I think we have to weight those down a little bit. But I think that's his checking range, which is incredibly weak. We are pretty confident. I think at this point, we have to avoid like an ace or a king. Overcards in general, I think would be good for us. Two of spades, that does not, I don't think that changes anything. Small chance that he had a 2 and he decided to check behind. Now I think if we want some value, we're going to have to bet. The question is, if we bet, what kind of hands is he going to call with? If we bet, I think maybe he's going to call with those pairs. He's going to think that we might be bluffing. I think this is a player that's going to try to bluff catch with all of those hands. I think 3 of a kind calls. There's a possibility that he even bluff catches with ace high. So I think this would be a decent spot to go for a bet. I think to be consistent with our sizing, we're going to be betting 75 to pot. Make it larger. I think if we do like half pot or smaller, he could interpret that as I'm trying to bluff, but I'm afraid to actually bet. So I did do half pot. I don't really like that. And also, what kind of hands do we bet? I think we're 100% of our range here. We've got our value that we've connected with. We've got our bluffs. And, breaking it down, I'd call 8s our value. I'd say 8s are value. So we're looking at, 2-to-1 value to bluffs. So I don't think that's big enough. He calls. I'm sure my thought was, well, I don't want to bet so large that he folds. I want to encourage him to bluff catch, but I think to be consistent with all of my range, I think we're going to have to go larger, especially against a player like this. So what kind of hands is he going to call? We've already just kind of discussed it. He calls there. We see the river. I show 10, he shows ace jack, so he did bluff catch with ace jack, and we have that in the range. So we're going to update this. Ace club jack of diamonds. So he bet 75%. He checked. Call. So we're going to do C 50%. On, let's see here. Under the gun. I think we're going to do IP. And let's get our flop. 5 spades, 4 hearts, 2 hearts, 9 spades, 2 spades. All right, so I kind of like how he played. Won the hand. The change that I would make would be the river bet. I think we go larger. There might be fewer hands that he calls with, but I still think he's going to probably call with ace high because he could put me on the heart draw that I missed the heart draw, so he's calling with the ace jack to bluff catch. And again, he might not call with all of these, but ace jack, ace queen, ace king, he's probably calling those. He's probably calling those weaker pairs as well. So I think going larger to get more value, and because that's a size that I would use if I was actually bluffing with my missed draws. I think that's the only change that I'd make. So hopefully you enjoy this hand. If you do, look tomorrow for another one.